Hey everyone, I'm Rizeki and welcome to a slightly different kind of video today. I'm going off script because I don't have too much time to write, record, and edit a full video. For some of you who may know, I am getting a brand new kitten tomorrow. Actually, as you're watching this video, I probably now have gotten the cat. So anyway, I've been doing a lot to get the apartment ready and all that. So this video is off script because it has to be. But I did want to get a video out this week, and I also wanted to go over some of the recent things that were announced, and things just kind of going on in the Destiny 2 bubble surrounding class items and macro farming. So we're going to be talking about all of that today. So anyway, let's just hop right in. I don't want to take too much time talking about random things. So at the top, Bungie has announced that there is a update to the restriction and ban policy for input macro loot farming. This is something that kind of got a lot of people up in arms. For those of you who may not know, recently, or pretty much ever since the class items got added into the game, the exotic class items, players have been trying to find ways to farm them. There's approximately, I say approximately, there are 128 unique class items, 64 per class, that you could use with Prismatic to get double exotic perks for your builds. And there's no real easy way to get these items. They're a very low drop rate in very specific areas in the Pale Heart. So, of course, Destiny players being Destiny players found a way to automate or make it a little bit easier to find the items they're looking for. This came in the form of macros and automated gameplay, essentially. So a group of players figured out, there's some auto hotkey script, or something along those lines that you could pretty much AFK the game and it'll farm chests for you in the Pale Heart. I never used it. I know some people who did. Either way, that's dead. You can't do that anymore. Otherwise you risk getting banned. So let's kind of talk about what it means to be macroing for this type of thing. This is different from something like macros on well skating or shatter dive skating. Those don't circumvent any AFK protections that are in the game, and they're not really helping you gain an advantage. Skating is kind of just a learned skill, and for accessibility reasons, it's not really a big deal to macro those. But things change when you're automating actual gameplay and you're not the one playing the game. It's honestly not very healthy for the game. Look, this is something that should have been patched a long time ago. I just think it hasn't been a issue before because most of the loot in the game that required some sort of a grind, whether that was raid exotics or high stat armor, things like that, there really wasn't a way to automate that gameplay. And players, for raid exotic specifically, you could really only get a chance 3 times a week at it unless it's the featured raid. So there was no real reason to macro farm any of this stuff because it would have been too complicated and it wasn't really worth the time investment. With class items, because there's so many of them and there's no knockout protection or anything like that, and if you only want 1 out of the 64 for your class, you're going to be spending hours and hours and hours like I have to get the exact one that you're looking for. So people decided that they didn't want to sit at their computer and do that, and they were just going to have the computer play it for them. And look, you're playing a game that requires you to kind of farm out the items you want. It is a looter after all, so it does feel a little weird to be able to just automate those tasks and kind of get it for free, whereas some other players just wouldn't do that or don't know that that's possible. Maybe they play on console. Anyway, it's not really good. If you're making a looter game, you want to incentivize players to earn the loot and not freely acquire it, but you also don't want to make it so challenging to get that loot that players find loopholes to skip doing the grind themselves. It's kind of backwards. What I'm trying to say is if you're playing a looter game or you're designing a looter game, there should be systems in place that allow you to get the loot that you're looking for. It's simple as that. What's interesting though is macroing wouldn't necessarily be too much of an issue if Destiny was only a co-op or a single player game, as in there was no MMO component to it. But because it's an online MMO, there comes some extra caveats. For example, like if we look at a game like Minecraft, not a perfect analogy, but players set up macros and AFK farm in that game, you know, pretty much all the time to farm out items and things that they don't want to sit there waiting for. But it's not an issue because there's no real MMO component. You're not gaining a huge advantage over players that don't do that. It's all for you and your friends, and that's it. But because Destiny 2 is an MMO, it changes how macroing actually affects the game and things like that. So it's bad in an MMO. Which, kind of side note, raises an interesting question of whether Destiny 2 should honestly be considered an MMO. In other games like, you know, RuneScape, Lost Ark, WoW, other big MMOs, there is a player economy that plays into the game where having macros is a lot more of a bad thing, because there's that player economy where if you just AFK grind out all of these rare items, then you could sell them on the market, and then you get a big benefit to yourself, and you basically disadvantage other players while advantaging yourself. English is hard sometimes. But again, Destiny doesn't have a player economy. There's no trading or anything. So it kind of, it's a big question mark, gray area, whether macroing is honestly bad in Destiny 2 or not. I'm kind of on the side of, yeah, it is bad. But, you know, ultimately, I think the question would come down to whether or not Destiny 2 wants to be an MMO or doesn't want to be an MMO, and then that will determine really what macroing means for the game. But as a game developer myself and a player who doesn't use macros or any external tools for that matter for anything, yeah, it kind of feels dirty to use a macro, and I'm okay with Bungie banning it. Good news though, it doesn't look like they're retroactively banning anyone for it. They'll just give you a warning if they detected it and tell you not to do it again, and then if you do it again, then you get banned. So if you used it in the past, you're good. You're safe right now. The other big thing about macroing is it's kind of a symptom of there being some sort of required or very high tier loot that's almost required for gameplay, but it's not easy to acquire. So basically, in the case of class items, they're almost required for prismatic, or at least on a lot of builds, a very specific class item is required. And if you can't get the class item, then you can't run the build, and that sucks. So that kind of incentivizes players to find that easy way to get the items. Or really what it means is that Bungie has not given us a way to get those items easily enough where we don't have to resort to using external tools to make it easier to get the items that we want. A 1 in 64 chance is a 1 in 64 chance on top of the low drop rate. So getting the roll that you want in a good amount of time is really difficult. And Bungie should really create systems that are going to make that easier. Which brings us to the next topic. Bungie has also announced that there is a new thing that they're doing for class items. There's actually a couple things to increase the chances of getting what you want. I don't want to beat a dead horse too much here, because people have kind of talked about the exotic class items thing to death, and I've already talked a bit about it in this video. But again, there's too many class items, and they're not easy enough to get. So what's Bungie doing? Well, there's two things that they really could tweak. You have the actual drop rate of the item, or the drop sources of the item. So what Bungie is doing here is kind of hitting both of these at the same time. They are adding more drop sources. The first one that they've announced so far is that Xur will be occasionally selling class items every weekend, which is nice. That's a nice little bonus change. Everyone likes Xur, and you know, especially for players who have pretty much all of the old exotics or weapons that Xur sells, having the option to get class items now is going to be a great way to spend strange coins. I know personally, I really don't have much to spend them on, so, you know, grabbing a class item that I don't have would actually be a pretty good use of my Xur currency. And the other thing Bungie is doing is adding a exotic class item attunement option. So we've seen this before with the Brave Arsenal weapons, where you can pick what you want and it'll increase the drop rate for that. Now, for the class item, you're going to be allowed to pick a single perk, either in the first column or the second column, and then we don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it should increase your drop rate for that particular perk. So, assuming that when you attune, it's a 100% chance, that means instead of a 1 in 64 chance of getting the class item you want, it's going to be a 1 in 8. So you could kind of assume you'll be playing, you know, maybe 2 or 3 overthrows and you'll get a class item, which honestly isn't that bad. It takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes to do an overthrow. So, or you could just go into Dual Destiny, especially on Weekly Reset, and then you get 2 class items at the same time, and then both are going to have the perk you're looking for, so that kind of reduces your odds to 1 in 4 Dual Destinies will give you the class item you want, which is pretty good. If they don't do 100% on the drop rate of your attuned perk, even increasing it by 50%, like 50% of the time you get the class item perk you're looking for, that's still probably going to, what is that, 1 in 16? That's still way better than 1 in 64. So, you know, I think on average, using this system, you'll probably find your class item pretty fast. Even when compared to a knockout system, a lot of players talk about knockout systems, and I think this would be a good option as well. But a knockout system is probably better suited for the collectors out there where they want to get every single possible class item. But if you're only looking for 1 or 2 specific ones, then a knockout system might still mean that you wait all the way until the 64th drop to get what you're looking for. Whereas this way, on average, you should be able to find it faster than a knockout system, which I think most players just want 1 or 2, maybe 3 class items. So honestly, I think the attunement is better than a knockout system, but that's my personal opinion. I don't really know. We haven't seen either of them in the game yet, so I guess we'd have to see them both, or at least one of them, to figure out if it's good or not. So anyway, we'll see if these changes actually improve exotic class item drop rates and kind of fix the macro farming issue. Besides people getting banned for macro farming, you know, I'm sure players would find other ways to circumvent having to grind for items. So we'll see if these changes actually do anything. But I think, you know, other than that, realistically, we're kind of at the point in Destiny 2 and I guess the history of the game where Bungie should really just be adding more ways to acquire resources across the board. Destiny is kind of in this quote-unquote end game state where we don't really know what's coming next. We know at least there's no big expansions, or as far as we know, there aren't any, and everything's going to be pretty much these small content drops. So with Destiny 2 kind of in this weird hiatus, done state, players should just be able to get what they want to play the game. Just, you know, maintain some level of grind because it still is part of the game. It's a looter game, but honestly, don't lock things up too much and just let players enjoy the game that they want to play, since we're pretty much at the end of it anyway, as far as we know. Maybe we'll get some more stuff in the future. We probably will. But, you know, just letting people play the way they want to is going to be way better and way healthier for the game. So we'll see if more systems like this get added in the future for various things. I think we've been seeing it across the game anyway. For example, you know, Cryptarch exotic decryption is a lot more of an easy way to get exotics you don't have, or, you know, even things like crafting, right? You get the exact weapon you want and you don't have to grind too much for it. Just a lot of quality of life things to let you get to the point that you could play the game that you want to play. Anyway, I think that covers everything. I'd love to hear what you guys think about these changes, if you're affected at all. Hopefully none of you got banned. I don't think anyone's been getting banned yet for the macroing, but hey, you never know. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you like the attunement option, if you would prefer a knockout system, or whatever. Just let me know everything down below, positive or negative. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or you can hit me up in Discord or stop by a live stream, and I'll be able to talk to you in real time. In that case, that would be kind of cool. We have a lot of cool discussions over on Discord, and especially during live streams. So, stop by. And, if you are watching this on Wednesday, the 21st, stop by the live stream and meet my new kitten. It's gonna be sick. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. As always, if you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button below, and also don't forget to subscribe. We're getting super close to 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and I'd love to have you around. We do weekly Destiny 2 design analysis and things like that, and you won't want to miss any of them. But I think that's pretty much all I've got for now. As always, I've been Rizeki. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.